It was supposed to be a peaceful evening, just dinner with her son, his wife, and her brother. The table was set neatly, the smell of roasted chicken filling the small kitchen. She had spent hours cooking, wanting the night to feel warm, like old times. But from the moment her son's wife walked in, something felt off. The young woman glanced around the living room with that same judging look she always had. Eyes scanning, lips curling slightly as if every piece of furniture were a mistake. "Still the same curtains?" she asked with a small laugh. "You really don't like change, do you?" The mother smiled politely. "They're comfortable. That's enough for me." Her son laughed too, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that warmed her heart. It was a laugh that sided with someone else, someone who didn't know how much love had gone into this home. They sat down. Her brother, a man of few words, tried to keep the conversation steady. He cracked small jokes, asked about work, tried to lighten the air, but the daughter-in-law couldn't help herself. Every topic turned into a subtle insult. When the mother mentioned her garden, she said, "Oh, that's sweet. My mom says old people love gardening because they don't have anything else to do." The mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. She said nothing. Her brother's jaw tightened. He noticed everything. Then, as if to crown the evening, her son leaned back in his chair, looked straight at his uncle, and said proudly, "My wife put her in her place so she'd finally shut up." The room went silent. The ticking of the old wall clock suddenly felt louder than anything else. Her heart sank. She felt her face burn, not from anger, but from deep shame. Her brother's eyes widened. For a moment, it looked like he was going to shout, but he didn't. He just said quietly but firmly, "That's enough." Dinner ended soon after. Her son and his wife left without so much as a goodbye hug. The sound of their car fading into the distance was almost a relief. Her brother stayed behind, helping her clear the table. He didn't say much, just moved slowly, washing the plates while she dried them. Then, as he wiped his hands on a towel, he turned to her and said, "You don't deserve that." She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "He's just young." He doesn't mean it, but they both knew he did. Before leaving, her brother looked at her one last time and said something that stayed with her all night. "You've been quiet long enough. Next time I won't be." And as she sat alone that night, staring at the empty plates and half-finished food, she knew the next time would come sooner than anyone expected. The next morning felt quieter than usual. The house carried an odd stillness, like the walls themselves were tired from the night before. The mother sat at the kitchen table, staring into her cup of tea that had already gone cold. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard her son's voice echoing again and again. "My wife put her in her place so she'd finally shut up." She tried to tell herself it was just a bad night, that he didn't mean it. But no matter how she turned the memory in her mind, the words still stung. Her brother came by just before noon. He didn't knock. He never had to. He'd always been her safe place, the one person who knew her story from the beginning. "You look tired," he said softly. Stepping in, "I didn't get much sleep," she replied, trying to smile. He placed a small bag of groceries on the counter and sat across from her. "I couldn't stop thinking about last night," she sighed. "I don't want to talk about it." "Maybe you should," he said. "You've been holding in too much for too long." She looked down at her hands. They were older now, thinner, marked by years of work and worry. "You think I haven't noticed how she treats me?" "I have, but he's my son. I don't want to push him away." Her brother leaned forward. "You already lost your peace trying to keep him close. What else is there to lose?" His words landed heavier than he expected. She stood and walked to the window. The garden outside was quiet, the flowers she planted years ago still standing strong, even after so many storms. She remembered when her son used to help her there as a boy. He'd get dirt all over his hands, laugh when she scolded him, and say, "One day, I'll buy you a big house with a huge garden." He meant it then. She knew he did. But life had a way of changing people, or maybe it was the people they married that did. She still remembered the first time she met his wife. Pretty face, confident smile. She spoke like someone used to getting her way. The mother had welcomed her warmly, even gave her the family's gold necklace, a piece she'd saved for her son's wife one day. But the warmth she offered was never returned. The daughter-in-law had a different kind of charm, one that worked in public but turned cold behind closed doors. She often dismissed the mother's advice, saying things like, "We do things differently now." At first, the mother ignored it. She told herself it was just youth talking. But as months passed, the distance between her and her son grew wider. Now, sitting at that kitchen table, she realized how much she had let go just to keep peace. Her brother finally spoke. "You raised him alone. He wouldn't have anything without you. Don't let anyone rewrite that." She turned to him, eyes moist. "He's my child. I don't need him to repay me." "That's not the point," her brother said, his tone sharper now. "He needs to remember. Respect isn't about paying back. It's about not forgetting who stood by you when no one else did." The silence that followed was heavy but honest. Later that evening, she decided to take a walk, something she hadn't done in weeks. The sunset cast a golden light over the street. She passed the park where she used to take her son after school. She could still see his small hands clutching hers, his voice saying, "Don't ever let go, Mama." Tears welled up again. When did that little boy disappear? Back home, she found her phone buzzing with messages from her daughter-in-law. The tone was sharp and unapologetic. "I hope you're not still upset about last night. You can't expect everyone to agree with you. Times have changed." The mother read the text over and over before quietly turning off her phone. Her brother called just moments later. "I heard she messaged you," he said. "What did she say?" "Nothing worth repeating," she answered softly. He paused. "Then don't reply, not yet." "Let me handle it," she hesitated. "Please don't make things worse," he sighed. "I won't, but I can't stand by and watch you get disrespected in your own home." That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about her brother's words. Maybe he was right. Maybe silence had gone on long enough. But part of her still believed that her son would come to his senses on his own. She had faith in that small boy who once promised never to let go. And yet, deep inside, something told her this was only the beginning, that what happened at dinner wasn't the worst of it. Because when pride takes root, it grows fast and destroys everything in its way. The mother didn't know it yet. But the next Sunday, the day her brother invited them all to his house, would become the day everything would finally break. Sunday afternoon arrived with a heavy stillness in the air. The mother had spent the morning pacing around her living room, trying to convince herself that everything would be fine. Her brother had insisted on inviting everyone over to his house for lunch, saying it was just a meal to clear the air. But deep down, she knew her brother never did anything without reason. When she arrived, she noticed the table was already set neatly, plates shining, glasses arranged perfectly. Her brother stood by the window, arms crossed, his expression calm but unreadable. "Did they say they're coming?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "They'll be here soon." Minutes later, she heard the familiar sound of her son's car pulling into the driveway. Her heart tightened. She wasn't ready. Not after the words that still echoed in her mind from that night. Her son walked in first, looking confident as ever, followed by his wife, who carried a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Uncle," the son greeted casually. "Nice to see you," his brother gave a nod. "Glad you both made it." The daughter-in-law looked around. "You've got a lovely place. Bigger than your sister's." It wasn't meant as a compliment. The mother noticed the smirk behind the words, but before she could respond, her brother motioned for everyone to sit. "I called this lunch because we need to talk," he began. His tone steady but firm. The son frowned. "Talk about what?" "About respect," his uncle said simply. "And about the way you've been treating your mother." The daughter-in-law laughed under her breath. "Oh, here we go again. Another lecture?" Her brother ignored her. His eyes were fixed on the son. "You remember when your father left, right? Who took care of you? Who worked 2 jobs just to make sure you had food on the table? It wasn't me." It wasn't anyone else. It was her. The son's face hardened. Uncle, please. That's not fair. Things are different now. Different how? His uncle shot back. Different because you got married? Because you think being a husband gives you the right to forget where you came from? The room grew tense. The daughter-in-law crossed her arms. He doesn't forget. But your sister can be difficult. She doesn't like how we live our life. The mother stayed silent, her hands trembling slightly under the table. Her brother turned to the daughter-in-law. You may have your opinions, but there's a line. And last week you crossed it. The young woman rolled her eyes. If she can't take a little honesty... Honesty? The brother's voice cut through her words like a knife. That wasn't honesty. That was humiliation. You embarrassed her in her own home, and her son... He turned sharply toward the young man, laughed. The son opened his mouth to respond, but then hesitated. For a moment, his eyes flicked toward his mother. She wasn't looking at him. That silence stung more than any argument. The uncle continued, his voice lower now, but filled with something heavier. Disappointment. You think pride makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you blind. And one day you'll regret the way you're treating her. The son's wife scoffed. Oh, please. You're making it sound like he's some kind of monster. The uncle leaned forward. No, he's not a monster. He's a good man being led down a bad path, one that ends with him standing alone, wondering why the people who loved him most stopped waiting for him to come home. The words hung in the air, heavy and real. For the first time, the son didn't have a quick reply. He looked at his hands the same way he did as a boy when he was caught doing something wrong. The mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to fight. I just wanted peace in the family. Her brother nodded gently. And you'll have it, but not by staying silent. The daughter-in-law stood up suddenly. I think we should go. This is ridiculous. But before she could take a step, her husband spoke quietly, almost to himself. Maybe Uncle's right. She turned to him, eyes wide. Excuse me? He swallowed hard, looking between his wife and his mother. I don't know when I started treating her like a burden. I guess I got too caught up trying to prove I could run my own life. The mother's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to prove anything, son. I just want you to remember who you are. The silence that followed was raw, uncomfortable, but honest. The daughter-in-law said nothing, just tightened her jaw and looked away. The uncle finally leaned back in his chair. That's all I wanted. The truth on the table. They finished the meal quietly. No shouting, no more insults. Just the sound of forks clinking against plates and the soft breathing of people who'd finally said what needed to be said. As they left, the son hugged his mother, the first time in months. It wasn't long, but it meant everything. Her brother stood at the doorway watching them go. He'll come around, he said softly. She nodded. I hope it's not too late. He gave her a small smile. It's never too late when a mother still loves her son. That night, the mother felt lighter. But what she didn't know was that peace was only temporary, because when truth comes out, pride doesn't die easily, and for her son, the hardest lessons were still waiting ahead. The week after that Sunday lunch felt strangely calm. The mother noticed how quiet everything had become. No phone calls, no visits, no arguments. For a few days, she almost convinced herself that things were getting better. But peace built on silence rarely lasts. One chilly evening, as she was making tea, a sharp pain shot through her chest. She gripped the counter, trying to steady herself. The world blurred for a moment, and the next thing she knew, her brother was rushing her to the hospital. You should have told me you weren't feeling well, he said, his voice trembling with worry. I thought it was just tiredness, she murmured weakly. The doctor called it stress exhaustion. Too much worry, not enough rest. Her brother stayed by her side through every test, every long night, every sigh. When her son found out, he arrived late, much later than she expected. He looked uncomfortable walking into the hospital room, like he didn't belong there. Mom, he said softly, stepping closer. She smiled faintly. You came. Of course I did, he said, but his voice cracked slightly. He looked around at the machines, the thin hospital blanket, his mother's pale face, and for the first time in years, guilt weighed heavier than his pride. His uncle, standing at the corner, crossed his arms. She needs rest. Not more stress, the son nodded silently. There was nothing to argue. The next few days he visited often, bringing her favorite soup, flowers, even the blanket she liked from home. His wife came once, stayed for 10 minutes, then left, saying she had things to do. The mother never mentioned it, but her brother noticed. Late one night, when she was finally asleep, the two men sat outside the hospital room in silence. "You look tired," his uncle said. The son nodded. I didn't know she was this sick." "She's been carrying more than her body can handle," the uncle said quietly. "Not just age, but pain, disappointment." The son's head dropped. "I said things I can't take back." "Then don't waste time trying to erase them," his uncle replied. "Do better instead. Start now." The son stared at the floor. "She always forgives me, even when I don't deserve it. How can she still love me after everything?" His uncle sighed. "Because that's what mothers do. They love even when it hurts." That night, the son couldn't sleep. He sat by his mother's bed, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. He thought about all the years she worked 2 jobs just to make sure he never went to bed hungry. How she'd patch up his shoes, tell him stories, and remind him that kindness was worth more than pride. And now here she was, fragile and quiet, because of him. When she woke in the morning and saw him still there, she smiled weakly. "Did you stay all night?" He nodded. "Yeah, I didn't want to leave you alone." Her eyes softened. "You were never a bad son. Just lost for a while." Her words broke him. Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time in years he let himself cry. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I should have stood up for you." I let her say things no one should have said. She reached out and gently took his hand. "You found your way back. That's what matters." That afternoon his wife called. He stepped outside to answer. "Are you staying there again?" she asked, her tone sharp. "Yes," he said. "She's not well. Your uncle's probably exaggerating." "She'll be fine," she replied dismissively. He frowned. "You didn't see her. She's weak. The doctor said it's stress." "Then she needs to relax," she said. "You being there won't change anything." For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he said quietly, "You don't understand, do you? She doesn't need medicine, she needs peace. And maybe I'm part of the reason she lost it." The line went silent. Then came the reply, colder than before. "So you're blaming me now?" "I'm not blaming anyone," he said. "I'm just trying to fix what's broken." He hung up before she could respond. When he went back inside, his uncle gave him a knowing look. "Sometimes doing the right thing means walking away from people who don't want to understand." The son sat down and nodded. "I think I finally see that." Over the next week, the mother's health improved. Each day she got stronger, smiling a little more, talking a little longer. The color returned to her face, and soon she was well enough to go home. Before she was discharged, the doctor said gently, "Try to avoid stress. Take care of your heart, both the physical one and the emotional one." As they left the hospital, her brother drove, her son in the back seat quietly watching the city roll by. The mother looked out the window, thinking about how close she'd come to breaking completely. But something had changed, not just in her body, but in her son's heart. He'd finally seen what love looked like when it stayed quiet through pain. And for the first time in years, he realized he didn't want to lose that. Still, deep inside, he knew one more conversation had to happen, with his wife. Because no healing could last if the wound that caused it was still open. The morning after they brought the mother home from the hospital was peaceful. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, and the smell of fresh air filled the room. For the first time in a long while, she felt calm. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had accepted what she could not control. Her brother came by early, carrying a small bag of groceries and his usual smile. "You look better," he said warmly. "I feel better," she replied, arranging flowers on the table. "Maybe I just needed to let go of all that hurt." He nodded, but his eyes wandered toward the front door. "He'll come today," he said quietly. She didn't ask how he knew. A mother always feels it too. Around noon, there was a soft knock. Her heart fluttered. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door. Her son stood there, looking tired, but different. His eyes were softer, his posture humbler. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. She smiled gently. "Come in." He stepped inside, holding a small box in his hands. "I brought you something." Inside the box was a bracelet, not expensive but simple and meaningful. A silver band engraved with the words, "Always with you." She touched it lightly. "It's beautiful," he looked down. "It reminded me of when I was little. You used to wear that old bracelet Dad gave you. It broke one day, remember?" "I do," she said softly. "I kept the pieces." He smiled sadly. "I thought this could replace it." "Not just the bracelet, but what I broke too." Her eyes filled with tears, but before she could speak, he said, "Mom, I've been awful. I let pride make me blind. I let someone else's anger become my own. And I forgot the one person who's always loved me no matter what." She stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. "I never stopped loving you. I just prayed you'd find your way back." He took her hands. Uncle was right. I needed to remember where I came from. Her brother, who'd been standing quietly by the kitchen, cleared his throat. "Well," he said gruffly, "some lessons come late, but at least they stick." They all shared a soft laugh, the kind that feels fragile, like something newly healed. After a moment, the son said, "She wants to come by later." The mother hesitated. "Your wife?" He nodded. "She said she wants to talk." Her brother raised an eyebrow. "Let's hope it's not more talking down." The son sighed. "I told her that if she wants to fix things, she needs to do it with respect. No more sarcasm. No more pride." That afternoon, when the daughter-in-law arrived, she looked different, quieter, uncertain. She carried a small potted plant in her hands. "I brought this," she said softly. "For your garden." The mother nodded politely, taking it from her. "Thank you." For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not angry, more like an unfinished sentence waiting to be spoken. Finally, the daughter-in-law said, "I was wrong. About a lot of things." Her voice was calm, honest. "I thought I was defending my husband. I thought if I acted strong, it meant I was respected. But I see now that all I did was hurt people who never deserved it." The mother studied her face. This woman who had once mocked her, who had turned her son against her and saw something new, humility. She nodded gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn." The daughter-in-law swallowed hard. "I want to do better. I want peace in this family too." Her brother leaned against the counter, arms crossed but smiling slightly. "Then start with kindness. It works better than pride." Everyone chuckled softly, easing the tension. The son stepped forward, wrapping an arm around his wife. "We're both sorry," he said. "And we'll prove it, not with words, but with how we treat you." The mother smiled through her tears. "That's all I ever wanted." They spent the rest of the day together, cooking, talking, even laughing. It wasn't perfect. There were still careful pauses, gentle steps around old wounds. But it was real, and sometimes that's enough. As the sun began to set, her brother prepared to leave. He looked back and said, "You did good, sister. You never gave up. And that's what saved this family." She smiled. Maybe love just needs time to remind people of who they really are. That night, when the house was quiet again, she sat by the window wearing her new bracelet. The silver glimmered softly in the lamplight. She thought about all the years she'd spent holding her family together with nothing but patience and faith. And she realized something. Love doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It just waits, quietly, steadily, until people remember where they belong. Outside, the garden swayed gently in the evening breeze. The little potted plant her daughter-in-law had brought sat among the flowers. It looked small now, fragile, but with care it would grow, just like her family had.